All right, we're gonna be talking about some summer walleye tactics that you can use to catch more fish this season. I'm gonna be breaking down the top 5 presentations that I always have tied on this time of year. So I don't wanna waste any of your time. So we're gonna just jump right into it. Tactic number 1 that I always have ready to go is just gonna be a simple jig with like a minnow style plastic. So this is the eye candy minnow. But for me, like a 4-inch minnow is gonna be a go-to. You know, 4.5 can work as well, 5-inch possibly. But 4-inch minnow is gonna be a staple for me. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm actually gonna use it for a number of different things. I can cast at fish that are up shallow. I can rip jig. I can pop that bait in the fish's face. I can let it crash down to bottom and I can pop it on the bottom and almost fish it kind of like a Ned Rig. Or I can go fish for suspended fish with this and you know, cast it out and just kind of pop it in place and sort of, you know, ping them as they call it. So yeah, so jigging a plastic minnow is going to be a go-to. The nice thing about these is I don't think you have to get too specific about specifically which jig you're putting on it. So I don't know if the autofocus is going to work super good here, but what I have on this one right here is a Northland Tungsten Stand-Up Jig. This is a pretty cool jig because it has a slightly stouter hook. And then also, like, you know, when that bait is down on the bottom, it's just more likely to stand up vertical. But yeah, I think the most important thing, even beyond the weight of it, excuse me, beyond the color of it and the shape of it, is just the weight of it. So of course I do a nice little tangle in the middle of this video, but this is real. This is a real video. We're not cutting that out. Is the weight. So a lot of times for me, I like to use like a 1/4 ounce weight. You can do a 3/16, even upsize to like a 3/8 if you want a really fast drop speed. But a lot of times I like the 1/4 ounce. You know, these, the type of plastic that this eye candy is made out of actually floats, so it does slow down the drop speed a little bit. So 1/4 ounce is honestly kind of finesse with this particular plastic, but you can upsize it even more, 3/8 to get, you know, a faster drop speed. So just super versatile. I can't tell you, hey, this is the one way to fish it, because there's a lot of different ways that you can fish this and have success. But honestly, my favorite is up in the weeds rip jigging. I think we'll do a piece on that at some point this summer. But yes, that's number 1. Number 2. We'll actually just stick in the jig category here. This is one you guys have seen before. I throw this one quite a bit. So super light, long shank jig. This is also Northland's Tungsten Stand-Up, but pair it with a night crawler. There it is right there. That's a little look-see. You can do a black jig. I know a lot of people I know like natural colors like black, green pumpkin, stuff like that. But man, a lot of times I've found that you can have, not always, but you can have more success with something a little bit brighter. So this is white with a little blue on there. Honestly, one of my favorite colors is white. It's like half white and half chartreuse. I've been using that a lot this season. And I've been having a lot of success. Another thing you can do too is like metallic colors, like metallic silver or metallic gold, especially metallic gold. I love that color. So whether it's clear bodies of water or dingy, you know, having something super natural might help you get a few more bites when they're picky. But when they're kind of in like a moderate mood, sometimes having a little bit of color or a little bit of white, just something that is a little bit easier for those fish to see, is really critical. I was fishing with my buddy Brett McComas. I don't know if you've heard of him. You know, small-time walleye fishing content creator. No, Brett is awesome. And we were just kind of taking turns casting at different fish. The body of water that we were fishing was pretty clear, but is a little bit tannic. And he was using, it was either a dark green, kind of green pumpkin-y color, or black, I can't remember. It might have been black. And I had something where it was like brown on the top. It was actually a smeltonator where it was brown on the top and then white on the bottom. and they could just, it was very obvious that they could see my jig a lot better than they could see his. And so I was catching a number of fish that he wasn't able to get. We're taking turns throwing at the same fish too, so it's not necessarily the mood. You know, you can tell you have good casting angles, and they could just see just a little pop of white, you know, or in a lot of cases I like to use a little pop of chartreuse. They can just see that a little bit better. So I'm kind of digging deep into here, the jig, but the weight, when I'm throwing a jig and a crawler, I love an 1/8 ounce. I know some people will upsize to a 1/4 if I'm fishing for really aggressive fish or fish that are moving really fast. 1/4 can be nice as well. 3/16 is kind of like a good in-between size. But that being said, I love the 1/8. I can still cast the 1/8 plenty far. So I'm a big fan of it. I should also say too, on the rod reel line side of things, I'm pretty much mostly uniform with all of the different setups. So I have a 7'2" tuned up. We have a medium light power, not extra fast, medium light power, fast action rods. And then for the reel, like a 2000 or a 3000 size spinning reel is gonna be great. This is the Carbon X2, which has been just an awesome reel, I'd say, for the money. For me, I've been playing with them a lot this year, and they held up all winter. Super great this summer. The drags are super smooth, even when it's really cold. Mainline, I've got 10-pound Suffix, what do they call it? Revolve? Whatever the new finesse braid they have. If I said the wrong name, I'll put it on the screen what the real name is. But 10-pound test has been my go-to. That line is just a little bit thinner. Normally I like 8-pound test, but with this line specifically, upsizing to 10, it's more similar to 8-pound. And then I'll have either an 8-pound or a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader, and the length is huge too. Like a lot of times I'm going over 10 feet with my leader. But if you're fishing somewhere where the fish are more aggressive or the water is dingier, if you're up in Canada, you know, if you're fishing Winnie, if you're on Devil's Lake, you don't necessarily have to have a super long, super light leader. But most of my setups, I'll have 6-pound fluorocarbon with pretty long leader. So that's my second one. I feel like I'm missing a few points on some of these, but honestly, I could probably talk for 30 minutes on each of these. The next one is one that I've done a lot of seminars on, and I know for a fact I could talk probably at least 2 hours on, is the drop shot. So I don't want to go too crazy into this one, but this is another one that's going to be a go-to for me often in the summertime, and that is the drop shot. So I've got a nice straight shank hook on there. You can either do a number 2 or a number 1. I like the straight shank because you can thread a crawler on it, you can thread a plastic on it, but you still can nose hook it. I should show you guys some of this here. Come on, focus. There we go. Yeah, this is just like a little Gamakatsu hook. If I remember, I'll link it down below in the comments or in the description of the video. But yeah, so this is my go-to drop shot hook. And then you have a dropper line down to the weight right here. So I actually have a 3/8 ounce weight on right now. So kind of my tournament setup, one of the last videos I did, I was fishing with Brett McComas, and jigging a crawler is going to be just a staple, especially on clear bodies of water. The thing is, so many of these lakes that I fish are really clear and really pressured, and this is just going to be a go-to. It's really hard to even take it out of your hands because it's just so effective, which you guys have probably seen in some of my videos. I'm using a jig and a crawler a lot in the summer, but the second go-to is the drop shot. So if I see a pod of walleyes that are 18 feet down right on the weed edge, take this. I've got a crawler threaded on it, or I've got a leech nose hooked on it. This 3/8 ounce weight, you just toss it out there, goes down in a hurry, right into the school. Shake the bait, not the weight, very critical. And it's just a good way to, you know, get bites when you've got a big school of fish like that. But that being said, It's also a good tactic. So I actually upsized this weight on here to a 3/8 ounce because I was targeting fish that were close to bottom, but they were swimming really quickly. So you can get this bait down to them super quickly. You know, you can be really fast and efficient with the weight. And then once the weight hits the bottom, you can be super finessey, you know, and super weightless presentation with this hook where you're just kind of shaking the line. So it's a really cool, really cool tactic. But honestly, I gotta say too, like the weights, it's like all over the place. If I was fishing in heavy current, I wonder if that's getting too dark. If I was fishing in heavy current, how's that? Is that better? That'll work. If I was fishing in heavy current, I could definitely upsize even to a 1/2 ounce. But that being said, oftentimes I actually use lighter weights than this. So 3/8 for me is pretty heavy. You're really crashing down to the fish. A lot of times like my universal weight that I'm using the most is gonna be either like a 3/16 or a 1/4. But honestly, especially earlier in the year, or even in the midsummer, like if those fish are in like 12 feet of water and they're really just, there's a big pot of them, it's nice to put like a really light, like 1/8 ounce weight on there. And that bait just comes down so much slower. Something like this that's really big and heavy, sometimes you can spook those fish because you just come in so fast and bang the bottom. So just something to think about. Something to consider. One thing I do like, Northland has these Dropshot weights, and what's cool about them is they actually have the number on them as well. So you know exactly how much they weigh. You don't have to kind of try and figure out, or leave them in the package, you know, or anything like that. So you know how heavy they are. So Dropshot, always gonna be a go-to for me. Always gonna have it ready to go. Doesn't matter where I'm at, where I'm fishing, this is just a staple for me. And usually with the Dropshot, I'm doing the 6-pound fluoro, you know, just to be as finesse as humanly possible. There's so much more I could say about this. I want to talk about like how I'm fishing it, you know, how you set the hook. It's a little bit different. There's a lot of items, but I've also done more videos on Dropshot fishing too in the past. So we're just gonna move on to presentation number 4. I don't know why I did that. That was kind of weird. And that is a Ned Rig. Have you guys ever used Ned Rigs before? I love Ned Rigs. So this right here is a Nedster head with a 4-inch stick bait. And this is just gonna be a go-to. I love green pumpkin. I love the chartreuse head. Sometimes you can go with like a natural green pumpkin head as well. Just have the whole thing be super natural. Black heads work too, obviously. Any color can work, of course. But where the Ned fits into the arsenal, a lot of times is gonna be fishing around weeds. This is gonna be a great throwback bait as well. Let's say I'm throwing a jig and a night crawler at the fish, and let's say rips off the back end of my crawler, and it's gonna take me, you know, 30 seconds to put a new crawler on. You know, sometimes when those fish are fired up, you just want to get back in there. So jig and a plastic minnow definitely is going to be a go-to in those situations. But sometimes I'll turn around and grab a Ned Rig. And the Ned Rig's cool. Sometimes you can get, the Ned Rig is super versatile. So I would say I would catch probably more fish on the bottom with the Ned Rig than up higher in the water column. But that being said, if a fish is higher in the water column, you can pop that Ned up in front of them, and sometimes it just elicits an aggressive strike and you get hit on those fish. But a lot of times what you'll do is, like, especially if the fish is at least halfway down, you can cast a net at them and just kind of, you know, do a controlled drop where you're not letting it fall on a slack line, but you're actually kind of, you have the bail closed and you're kind of holding it and kind of letting it pendulum down to bottom. So it slows the drop speed a little bit. You'll get those walleyes to tail it down to the bottom, and then you just kind of pop it, pop, 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 pop. And it's not like a super, super soft You know, you're not trying to just like slowly lift and drop it. I mean, you can, that can work, but a lot of times it's like a pop, 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 pop. So that's another one. I love Ned rigs. Super fun to use. Nice thing is you can, you know, have one of these rigged up and you can sort through. One spot where I really like to use Ned rigs is when I'm fishing weeds, and you know, there's a lot of bass, there's some pike, but there's also walleyes in there, and you got to work through some of those other species to get to the walleyes. That's when I like a Ned rig. Honestly, that's also when I like the, you know, jig and minnow plastic. Jig and minnow plastic, not a jig and a live minnow. I also like that in those situations as well, just because it's just more durable. You can catch 3 or 4 bass and then plunk, stick that 24-inch walleye or whatever. So it's nice to have something that's a little bit more durable. Honestly, in a lot of cases, I would say this guy and the Ned rig are gonna have a lot of similar use cases. I just feel like the minnow profile is just has a little bit more bias towards catching them higher in the water column. It seems like they like that just a little bit more, and then when they are on the bottom, it seems like they like that Ned rig just a little bit more. So those are my top 4, and then the last one, I was actually digging through my rod locker, and it's in my truck still, but the last one is a bobber. So I know there'll be some people upset. Maybe if I can think of, I didn't write anything down, but maybe I can think of a few honorable mentions for some of the other presentations. But my 5th and final in the top 5 group is going to be a bobber. So bobbers are awesome. They're great. I don't love using bobbers. It's not my favorite. I just hate adjusting the depth all the time. I love just throwing lighter jigs at fish and trying to get them to react. I don't love casting a bobber out to them and hoping they take it. Obviously you can pop that bobber a little bit, get that bait moving, but the flexibility you have with just a clean jig is just so much more. You can do so much more with it. But I should fish bobbers more. I don't. Some guys in our walleye leagues will fish bobbers, and there's some days where you just really need to have a bobber. So recognizing that is really critical when you're watching the fish. If you have, you know, modern technology and you're watching the mood of the fish, if they're not moving on jigs or anything like that, you got to recognize that quickly, and sometimes going to the bobber is going to be the go-to. So I like to usually put a small, like 16th ounce jig underneath it. That's my go-to. I feel like you get way less fouling up and tangling and stuff with the jig versus having, you know, just like a weightless hook with a, just like a normal octopus hook or whatever with a weight pinched above it. So yeah, that's generally my thought. Usually putting leeches underneath it, but some days, honestly, a crawler can be just as good or better. So don't be afraid to thread a crawler onto a jig, you know, underneath a bobber as well. So just something to think about. Those are the top 5. Some of the honorable mentions, sorry, there's just boats running around. It's a busy day. I tried to pick the quietest spot I could find on the lake here, but there must be 30 boats out here today on a random Wednesday or Thursday. So anywho, that's what I got for you. Honorable mentions. I don't troll really much anymore, but honorable mentions is spinners. Like, spinners are just super awesome, or any kind of like slow death crawler rig in and around the weeds can be super good. Another one's just going to be trolling cranks, and that's not something I've done a lot. Definitely wouldn't say I'm an expert on that, but trolling cranks is another honorable mention. What other honorable mentions we got? There's a lot of honorable mentions depending on where you fish. So if I was up in Canada, or if I was up on Rainy Lake, we go to Rainy Lake and it's like you have 3 different swim bait rigs set up. Number 1, so you have a couple different sizes and weights ready to go like instantly, but also like yeah, sometimes you'll have a normal jig, sometimes you'll have one with an underspin underneath, sometimes you'll have a 5-inch swim bait, a 4-inch swim bait, a 3.5-inch swim bait, 7-inch swim bait. So if I was up on Rainy, I'd have 3 swim baits tied on, right? But around here, it's tougher to get bit on swim baits in the summer. So obviously you can get some in the spring, and obviously you can get some in the summer as well. But just depends on where you live, you know. Some sort of vertical glide bait can be super effective in a lot of different places as well. And around here as well, like you can catch them on, you know, puppet minnow, jig and wrap, shiver minnow, all of the different variations of the glide bait. The jig and wrap is the original from, you know, 60 plus years ago or whatever. Yeah, so that's a really great presentation. And you go somewhere, you know, you might go to Devil's Lake and it's like, oh, that's going to be the first thing you throw or whatever. A lot of lakes around here, you definitely can still catch. But for me, it was in the top 5 at one point, and now it's not anymore. And it's not because it's not good. There's just other presentations that seem like they work a little bit better for me. So we fish these local walleye leagues. These are some of the best anglers in, you know, all of central Minnesota. Super good anglers that are used to fishing on these tough bodies of water. Some of them still will use those aggressive glide baits, but I don't see a lot of them doing it anymore on these lakes. So definitely still catches some fish, but it's not as good as it used to be. And honestly, for someone else, like maybe for Brett or TJ or, you know, Boley or some of these other people, like that still may be in their top 5, but for me, it's not something that I'm using a lot anymore. So there's probably some other honorable mentions I'm not thinking of right now. But that's what I got for you. That's the whole video. How long was that? 52 minutes? That can't be right. Anyway, I can't figure out how to work cameras, but tried not to waste your time, tried to rip through these pretty quick, but honestly, like I said before, I could probably talk a half hour to an hour at least on all of these presentations. So thank you for watching all the way to the end. Grab some of these setups and give them a rip, catch some more walleyes this year. Thanks for watching. I've never asked anyone to subscribe, so I'm not gonna start now, but if you enjoyed this video, go down in the comments and tell me what your top 3 favorite summertime tactics are. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.